Um, our next reader is another ice cream social regular, there we go. And so we're really, really grateful to have her featured here tonight. Laura Kraay is from Holland, Michigan. The town has an entire festival devoted to tulips. They even get off school to celebrate. If you notice her love for all things floral, know that it probably began there. She's currently working on her MFA at Texas State University. She's about to enter the workforce this spring. She hates the word workforce, but if you do know of any companies hiring, let her know. Her favorite ice cream flavor is cookies and cream.
Thank you, Shanta and Anar, for inviting me to read, and Malvern Books for hosting. I'm quite excited to be here. So in the spirit of Galentine's, I'm going to close and open my reading with a poem about a woman that I love and adore. The first one's name is Taylor, and the last one is Elaine. The first one is my college roommate, and the last one is my grandmother. So this first poem is called Carpentry, and it's beginning with the first line of the poet goddess Ada Limon. So if you haven't read her work, I'd recommend it. Carpentry. Maybe my limbs are made mostly for decoration. Like the way I feel about potpourri, I never know what to do with it. Do I lean forward to smell, let it sit on the coffee table? It's like when I'm at a party and suddenly so aware of how I'm standing. Feet on shagged carpet, pigeon inward, and it's time for small talk. And I want to ask, but I stutter, aware of how my tongue is in my mouth, is dry. And I'm trying to tell you how I love the way you become excited when talking about woodworking, cutting oak into triangles until it forms a rose that you turn into a table that you give your grandmother. She uses it to hold her Diet Cola, no ice, and tells people, "He made this. She made this for me." My friend makes these beautiful tables, as you might be able to tell. So this next poem is about a flower and also a glimpse of my not so great side. It's called My Neighbor's Orchid. My neighbor's orchid is dying, and reader, listeners, I'm afraid this brings me joy, seeing the fragility in orchid and the one who takes care of orchid, and how the grace of God only extends so far, and how nearby the bluebonnets spill in the highway. So this next poem is one I wrote just when I moved to Texas about 2.5 years ago, alive with hope and very sweaty. And so this poem is using a line that a woman at the Airbnb told me. It was out in hill country, and there were persimmons everywhere, and I thought it was the most beautiful thing, and she looked at them and goes, "Oh, even deer tire of these by this time of the year, like they won't eat them." And I was like so excited, and she was so bored by it. And that's kind of how I approached Texas. So in late August, even deer tire of persimmons. They used to crane their necks to nibble the honeyed delight. The berries now rot on Texas dust. Do you now understand why I did not want the inevitable swell of autumn? Even the sweetest berry should be a short harvest. Remember me laughing. We will stay like early spring and deer running looking for orange among branches. We will be the colors green and red and orange all at once. We will never spoil. You will not become annoyed by my laugh or the way I repeat the same stories. I will not notice the way you never really loved me, not the way I needed. Do not let anything become overripe mush, stuck to shoes and red crinkled leaves. Turn instead to the prickly pear. Stand over a boiling pot and simmer to remove thorns. Sample tangy fruit. It will taste sweeter to try anything but persimmons again. So my next two poems are about names. The first one is about the name of the Galapagos Islands, and the next one is about my name. So this is my tortoise poem. The Problem of Names. It's funny how Galapagos means tortoise, how the animals themselves had to give their name to the island, letting the process of giving become less abstract, more body and shell. Take several weeks to burrow from sand to air, and only 2 full-grown men to lift 75 years of tortoise onto a ship for soup. And so the island got to keep Galapagos, while the animals themselves left on wooden boats to become a seaside snack. Some rats leapt from boat to island and began to snack on eggs. The tortoises themselves left behind got to keep the hungry rats who loved the taste of tortoise. Last December, scientists celebrated the first 10 hatchlings who faced the possibility of adulthood, going from baby tortoise to tortoise so big one couldn't even wrap her arms around. The other name the explorers gave the island was Paradise. So this next poem is called Goblin Market in the 21st Century, and it's after Christina Rossetti's Goblin Market, and I was given a poetry prompt where I had to write about another Laura. And I thought, and I didn't know how to write a poem about Laura Ingalls Wilder as much as I love her, and so I decided to turn to Goblin Market and think, what are my Goblin Markets? And this poem is one of excess, and so my Goblin Market is much more about a place where there isn't abundance. Goblin Market. Goblins today are so much trickier. It's less about berries plump with promise and more about empty days. And it's become, have you gotten a Laura so starved that she'll settle for any small kindness? Some days on the way to work, she stops at the pastry shop and buys something wrapped in paper just to make small talk with the workers. This Laura dreams of being a suburban mom with a lawn and a book club, and bloomed down cheeked peach trees, and the feeling of hand on shoulder, and when Alora is husked and lonesome, she'll finally turn to the social goblins. She'll like the way they say her name. When Alora is drunk on sadness, she'll admit she's heaped and lonely even when surrounded. And you'll know she's lost when she looks you dead in the eyes and says, I didn't know a goblin could care so much. Didn't know one like you before. So this next one is a little happier-ish, bittersweet as all good things are. So if I was doing a Galentine's reading, I decided I needed to have a poem about my dog. So this is a poem about Edna, who is a very big part of my life if you know me at all. So this is a list poem called Good Dog. This one, yeah, a little bittersweet, also about a breakup. Good Dog. A good dog is usually a golden Labrador retriever. A good dog can be other breeds, but they must be spayed or neutered. A good dog knows how to sit. A good dog only barks when instructed to bark. A good dog brings a tennis ball back and drops it at her owner's feet. A good dog eats the food that falls on the ground. This is also referred to as the dog being the vacuum cleaner. She does this often if her owner is clumsy. A good dog never chases children. Never at the dog park. If it's an 8-year-old and she has a Starbucks in her hand and is running and your dog is filled with delight. A good dog will save a baby from whatever needs saving. This can include, but is not limited to, house fires, babysitters too busy with the boyfriend who snuck over, hurricanes, snakes, scorpions, and drowning in an above-ground pool. A good dog will sit with her owner while she cries. A good dog will sense a breakup coming. A good dog will not tail wag jump greet the soon-to-be ex-boyfriend when he walks in the apartment. Never. A good dog knows she will need to be both a replacement of a person and also still her dog self. A good dog can handle this. So this next poem is just about discovery and celebration and joy. It was when I was at a restaurant and I ordered beets that were fried, and I thought that they would be purple, and they weren't. So that's about that moment. An imperfect reflection on beets. Today I learned yellow beets are actually golden. Why be a color when instead the sun? And I move the root vegetable around my plate with a heavy fork. And reader, listeners, I don't know why I'm telling you this, but I think it may be I want you to love me. Or at least love the things that I do. Or perhaps I want a little more of something in this world that doesn't sting when pressed. And I'm standing here thinking that perhaps beets could be the way to reach across the table and hold your hand in mine, never minding clamminess and standing among gold that was pulled from earth, not quite beautiful or valuable enough to launch ships or start wars, just gold that when put in a pan and later and warmer to plate can nourish us for just a bit. I highly recommend golden beets. So this last, yay, my interactive portion. So I'm working on a longer piece right now, just of the moment people realized they became their mothers, in honor of Galentine's, and I think it's a beautiful thing the way we're always in the process of becoming, and especially becoming our mothers, these people that have raised us, or mother figures who've poured so much into us, and suddenly we see glimpses of them and what we do. So my moment that inspired this was I was having a small dinner party, and I decided I needed a small blue bowl for the goat cheese. And it must be in this bowl because I wanted my guests to be able to spread it from the bowl to bread. And I realized that's something my mother did, and I thought was so silly, that you could just put it on the table in plastic and you didn't need the bowl. But it was then that I realized it was an act of love, of creating this table for someone that has unnecessary things, that is access, but it's those brief moments of life where you can have access that someone created for you. So a few people wrote the moments they realized they became their mother, so I'm just going to read a few of these. So thank you if you contributed. I was writing a check, and one of the numbers has a 3. It looked exactly like my mother's 3s. I felt uncomfortable. She purchased a pair of sunglasses that happened to look just like mine. When she visited someone, took a picture of us together, making the exact same face, and I swear, you can't tell us apart. This one's especially great since I'm from Michigan, so I'll be able to say this word, I think, with the specialness that it requires. When I said pop, to refer to soda. Every time I use the expression, only boring people get bored. When I called my friend my sweet pea. So thank you for sharing. I'm working on a longer illustrated version of those same stories, so it's really delightful. And my last poem is a poem about my grandmother, and also kind of about moving to Texas. Grew up in a really small town, so I saw my grandmother a lot, and so when she was devastated I was moving, she decided she would write me a letter every week. So for the past 2.5 years I've gotten a weekly letter from my grandmother, just about anything, her thoughts on Trump, what's going on in the assisted living facility. They're always delightful, and they're always written in the most beautiful cursive. So my last poem, because she writes me every Tuesday. But first, I will tell you about how each week the loops in her pen get a little closer, a little messier, and she is afraid she has nothing to say. But I love hearing about the man at her assisted living facility who still misses his wife. He proposed among European pigeons and clock towers. She promised if the bells were ringing, she'd say yes. It was May 1945 and easier to believe in a world where apple blossoms might become apple. Meanwhile, back in America, my grandma was young and writing. She said she fell in love with writing and with my grandpa, who was young then too. He's only just started talking about Germany and how he was so scared, how he was a 19-year-old boy being handed a gun and only told to shoot towards the people coming towards him, and when he tells the story, he laughs a little. and she was so afraid that each letter he sent her would be the last letter. This week, there's a pink tulip and a sparrow, a note to say hello, and I am sitting on my floral couch in a sun-streaked apartment, foolish and terrified, because it feels like these letters will arrive forever. Thank you.